Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's I'm going to be reviewing this lifted Toyota Land Cruiser. This is more of what I call a bro build. It's more about the looks rather than the crazy off-road performance, and there's definitely a big market for this, so we'll go over the build and see what you guys think about it. Before we get in this video, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to the Karl Malone Toyota here in Draper for giving me some time with this Land Cruiser. Link to their website in the description down below, link to my car buying guide. Let's get into it. Under the hood, we have a turbo 2.4 liter 4-cylinder hybrid that goes through an 8-speed, puts out 326 horsepower and then 465 pound-feet of torque. Only engine option available here in the US market. Before we move forward with this review, I do want to mention if you want to see more videos just like this, then I recommend you subscribe because I post content every single day. Now this is built off of a 1958, and I think you're going to see a lot of 1958 builds because these are the slower selling version of the Land Cruiser. The other ones are sold out, but still, it's a cool car. One thing that I will recommend Toyota dealers to do is maybe consider painting this section here on their 58 builds because that's what a lot of people want. Anyways, with the build here, we've got 35s wrapped around 17-inch wheels. These are black Rhinos. I have these on my Grenadier, and I actually really like the black Rhinos. These are KO2s, which is a good tire. It's not the new KO3 that everyone's raving about, but the KO2s I think were still a really solid tire overall. And then this is lifted in the front and over in the rear as well. It's lifted a little bit more in the front than in the rear. Here, I'll give you guys a quick look at the setup here in the back with everything and give you guys an idea of the stance. It's definitely big rig. Now, something to note, it looks like the front end is popped up more. This is a bit of a slant here with the pavement. It's uneven, so just note that there's a little bit more load there in the back compared to the front. That's where the front looks like it's popped up just a little bit more, but it is lifted a little bit more as well. And then this one does have the factory roof rack, so it's got kind of like a cool look because of that. And then there's not really much else to go over other than just quick show you guys the 1958 interior. Again, it's the interior with like the cloth seats, the more basic setup. Still has heated seats and all of that. But go over the pricing here quickly. So the of course I drop it. This 1958 is equipped as $61,098 before the accessories. And then we've got our little accessory tag here. So you guys can see 3.5-inch lift up front, 2-inch in the rear. So like I said, it's a little bit staggered with that. That's pretty typical of these vehicles. But you can see the total price in there, $76,559 with this. And, well, let's see how it performs. Well, let us set off in this 1958 bro build. I used to be back then, I've talked about this a little bit, but I used to be a little bit more critical of these builds back in the day. But I just understand that people love this. Some people love this. And so, yeah, I've got respect for them. I mean, look at that Tacoma, for example. Kind of similar looking setup. Now, first off, definitely sits super high. That is something to note, that something you have to kind of get used to, but I like it. The new Land Cruiser is very boxy with the design. This a little more to the side. New Land Cruiser is very boxy. The design, it's got big upright windows and everything, so it just lends to a cool experience where you feel kind of like you're in one of those old school off-roaders where everything's upright and you're giant. You're like, oh, on top of the world, basically. Now, believe it or not, this hybrid 4-cylinder does have enough power to move 35s. I really want to review one of these with 37s, so we'll see if that happens in the future. But yeah, it doesn't struggle with 35s. The only downside is the fuel economy, right? Your fuel economy is not going to be great. But yeah, it can move them, and I think it's important to note that I own a 200 series. The 200 series is not great at moving bigger tires because of the gearing. They made the gearing on that really high, and so one of the things that a lot of people do with those 200 series is they'll re-gear them if they put bigger tires on them. But this, I don't think that you would really need to re-gear it per se. 37s maybe. Again, I got a review one to check, but 33s definitely not. And then 35s, I would say that it seems like it's fine. It seems like it's got enough power. Now, something to note with a lift like this, it is going to, and I haven't seen the exact specs on this lift, but just with how it drives, it feels like I have lost some down travel, which is pretty typical of a suspension lift like this. Let's see what the turn is. Let's actually go over here, because I want to test something that I saw in another review that I did, whereas I could do this fine. Okay, so no rubbing there, but in reverse. So let's do full crank. Huh? Yeah, it's not rubbing. And the steering is not struggling to move the 35s. There is a little bit of a spot at the edge where you can tell that the power steering kind of tapers off a little bit. Again, pretty typical. I've reviewed enough of these lifted vehicles that it's pretty typical. And that's why you'll see with some of the lifted vehicles, they'll add a steering stabilizer kit. It's usually with the Jeeps, because they have a solid front axle. Yeah, see, this is fine. Again, not a rocket ship by any means, and I was definitely in the power, but I would say that this Land Cruiser with 35s feels pretty much the same as like a 4Runner on stock tires, like the 5th gen 4Runners with the 4.0 V6, maybe even a little bit more powerful. So that gives you an idea of the power that this is producing. I mean, if you put a 4Runner on 35s, that thing's not moving. That thing is definitely not moving. But yeah, this is quite impressive. So again, this is not like, you could obviously still take this off-road. This still has front and rear locking differentials. It's still, or not front, center and rear locking differential. It still has a 2-speed transfer case, still has crawl control. Like, this could still go places. But again, what I'm feeling is a little bit of a loss of down travel, so you're not going to be able to reach down as far with this. So it's not going to articulate as well as like a stock Land Cruiser, for example. But yeah, if you just want something that looks cool, and you could still do a lot of, plenty, I mean, 35s, right? You could still do plenty of trails with it, then that's kind of what this particular build provides. The only thing that I could see is on those, you know, rough dirt roads that are a lot of off-roading, when you lose down travel, right, the suspension's a little bit stiffer. It definitely makes it so the ride quality's not all that great. But this rides pretty well for having such a big lift on independent front suspension. It's pretty impressive, and it doesn't look like it's got a change of shocks either, so I think that's also impressive. I think it goes to show you how good this new Land Cruiser platform is in certain ways. And also there's something I should have mentioned, the walk around. This one's got pretty much the same build methods though, but there's a lot of parts that you can take out in the front end of the Land Cruiser, like little air dams and everything, to create more space for the bigger tires. So Toyota purposefully made it so this new platform, and it's with all their vehicles, they made it so that it would be easier for people to lift them, because they understand a lot of people want to do that. So they added a bunch of the ability to remove a bunch of pieces, so you don't have to do as much trimming like you did with the previous gen. Like these, neither of these vehicles, from what I could see, have any sort of trimming on them to put these 35s. So pretty impressive. Let me know your thoughts.